to Rocky Mountain Prepper. I'm Bellum. We are continuing our journey through the Bible in the Strong Foundation series. When last we left off, Abraham rescued Lot. Him and his 318 men managed to destroy an army of thousands. And then we met Melchizedek, who I firmly believe was the pre-incarnate Jesus. Alright, we pick back up in Genesis 16. And Sarai, Abram's wife, had borne him no children, and she had a Mitzrayite female servant whose name was Hagar. That's Egyptian servant. And Sarai said to Abram, "See, Yahweh has kept me from bearing children. Please, go into my female servant. It might be that I am built up by her." And Abram listened to the voice of Sarai. Basically, that just says Sarah was getting desperate for children and wanting to help Abraham with the promise of being the father of many nations. Basically just said, "Hey, why don't you use my female servant there? Get a kid by her, and I'll call the child mine." And Abraham said, "Okay." Yes, this is getting to be very Jerry Springer. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her female servant, the Mitzrayite, and gave her to her husband, Abram, to be his wife, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan. And when he went into Hagar, and she conceived, and then she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was displeased in her eyes. Sarai didn't like it. I think that's more because Sarai realized that it was her that's barren, not Abram, unable to father children. And Sarai said to Abram, "My wrong be upon you. I gave you my female servant into your bosom, and when she saw that she had conceived, I was displeased in her eyes. Let Yahweh judge between you and me." And Abram said to Sarai, "See, your female servant is in your hand. Do to her what is good in your eyes." And Sarai treated her harshly, and she fled from her presence. And the messenger of Yahweh found her by a spring of water in the wilderness, by the spring on the way to Shur. It actually says that. And he said, "Hagar, Sarai's female servant, where have you come from, and where are you going?" And she said, "I am fleeing from the presence of Sarai, my mistress." And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, "Return to your mistress, and humble yourself under her hand." And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, "I am going to increase your seed greatly, too numerous to be counted." And the messenger of Yahweh said to her, "See, you are conceiving and bearing a son, and shall call his name Ishmael, because Yahweh has heard of your affliction. And he is to be a wild man his hand against everyone, and everyone's hand against him, and dwell over against all his brothers. It does explain later that Ishmael is the father of the Arab people. And obviously, look at current events. The Arabs are constantly fighting the people of Israel. And so, she called the name of Yahweh, who spoke to her. You are the El who sees. For she said, even here I have seen after him who sees me. And that is why the well was called Be'er Lahai Roi. See, it is between Kadesh and Bared. And Hagar bore Abram a son, and Abram called his name, the name of his son, whom Hagar had borne, Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bore Ishmael to Abram. That's actually a poignant tale for those of us who have struggled having children. God gives us kids in our own time. Or in his own time, I should say. Genesis 17. And it came to be when Abram was 99 years old that Yahweh appeared to Abram and said to him, I am El Shaddai. Walk before me and be perfect. And I give my covenant between me and you, and shall greatly increase you. And Abram fell on his face, and Elohim spoke with him, saying, As for me, look, my covenant is with you, and you shall become the father of many nations. And no longer is your name called Abram, but your name shall be Abraham, because I shall make you the father of many nations. And I shall make you exceedingly fruitful, and make nations of you, and sovereigns shall come from you. And I shall establish my covenant between me and you and your seed after you, in their generations, for an everlasting covenant to be Elohim to you and your seed after you. And I shall give to you and your seed after you the land of your sojournings, all the land of Canaan, as an everlasting possession, and I shall be their Elohim. And Elohim said to Abram, As for you, guard my covenant, you and your seed after you, throughout their generations. My covenant is, this is my covenant which you guard between me and you, and your seed after you. Every male among you is to be circumcised, and you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskins, and it shall become a sign of the covenant between me and you. And a son of 8 days is circumcised by you, every male in your generations. He who is born in your house or bought with silver from any foreigner who is not of your seed. Basically, that's saying this is an outward sign for you, and to keep with the covenant, you Circumcise your children if someone is purchased. Yeah, I know I don't like slavery either. But if someone is purchased and they are working in your home, they have to be circumcised as well. He who is born in your house and who is bought with silver has to be circumcised. So shall my covenant be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. Basically, it's to remind us of the covenant between our God, Yahweh, and us. And an uncircumcised male who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, his life shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. I think that's pretty self-explanatory there. And Elohim said to Abraham, as for your wife, or as for Sarah your wife, or Sarai your wife, do not call her name Sarai, for Sarah is her name. And I shall bless her and give you a son by her, and I shall bless her, and she shall become nations. Sovereigns of people are to be born from her. Basically, God is just telling Abraham where he went wrong with not trusting in the promise and going his own way to get what God had promised. We should not do it that way. We should follow God's plan. As hard as it is most of the time, he knows a lot more than us. And Abraham fell on his face and laughed, and said in his heart, is a child born to a man who is 100 years old, or is Sarah, who is 90 years old, to bear a child? Basically, he's thinking, I'm getting too old to have kids, and she's never been able to have kids. And she is well past the normal childbearing years. Okay? And Abraham said to Elohim, oh, let Ishmael live before you. And Elohim said, no, Sarah, your wife, is truly bearing a son to you. You shall call his name Isaac. And I shall establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. As for Ishmael, I have heard you. See, I shall bless him and make him fruitful and greatly increase him. He is to bring forth 12 princes, and I shall make him a great nation. But my covenant I establish with Isaac, whom Sarah is to bear to you at this appointed time next year. So God is basically saying, I'm fulfilling this covenant with you through your wife. It will, and the kid is going to be born at this time next year. He is giving an exact time for when the child is to be born. And when he had ended speaking with him, Elohim went up from Abraham. And Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all those born in his house, and all those bought with his silver, made every male among the men of Abram's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskins that same day, as Elohim told him. That's quite a few people. We know he had 318 men-at-arms, servants who were trained. How many children did they have that were boys? That could be quite a few kids, along with all of his fighters. That shows real commitment right there. And Abraham was 99 years old when he circumcised in the flesh of his when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. Poor guy. That's gotta hurt. A child of 8 days old doesn't really feel pain. They've actually done studies. At that young age, a male does not feel pain, especially down there around the foreskin. It doesn't hurt them. It hurts the parents more than the kid. And Abraham was 99. Oh, I read that. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin.
Ow.
And Abraham and his son Ishmael were circumcised that day, that same day. And all the men of his house, born in the house or bought with silver from a foreigner, were circumcised with him. All right, Genesis 18. And Yahweh appeared to him by the terebinth tree of Marine, and while he was sitting in the tent door in the heat of the day, so around noon. And this is, in my opinion, this would be Jesus showing up, because no one can see the Father directly and live. It says that numerous times throughout the Bible. So anytime God appears, it's Jesus. So he lifted his eyes and looked, and saw 3 men standing opposite him. And when he saw them, he ran from the tent door to meet them, and bowed himself to the ground, and said, Yahweh, if I have found favor in your eyes, please do not pass your servant by. Please, let a little water be brought, and wash your feet, and rest yourselves under the tree. And let me bring a piece of bread, and refresh your hearts, and then go on, for this is go on, for is this why you have come to your servant? And they said, do as you have said. Basically, he is offering them very generous hospitality. So Abraham ran into the tent to Sarah and said, hurry, make 3 measures of fine flour, knead it, and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd, took a tender young calf, gave it to a young man, and he hurried to prepare it. And he took curds and milk and the calf which he had prepared, and set it before them, and he stood by them under the tree as they ate. That's more or less hospitality in that time and region. You give your guests food, and you step back and see if they need anything more. Nowadays, you'd sit down with them and eat as well. And they said to him, where is Sarah, your wife? And he said, see, in the tent. And he said, I shall certainly return to you according to the time of life, and see, Sarah, your wife, is to have a son. And Sarah was listening in the tent door, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, well advanced in age, and Sarah was past the way of women, meaning she was past the childbearing ages. And Sarah laughed within herself, saying, After I have grown old, shall I have pleasure? Shall I have pleasure, my master being old too? And Yahweh said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I truly have a child since I am old? Is any matter too hard for Yahweh? At the appointed time, I am going to return to you according to the time of life, and Sarah is to have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid, and he said, no, but you did laugh. And the men rose up from there and looked towards Sodom, and Abraham went with them to send them away. And Yahweh said, shall I hide from Abraham what I am doing? Since Abraham is certainly going to become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him? For I have known him, so that he commands his children and his household after him to guard the way of Yahweh, to do righteous and right ruling, so that Yahweh brings Abraham what he has spoken to him. And Yahweh said, because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very heavy, I am going down now to see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry against it that has come to me, and if not, I know. Basically, Jesus is saying, I'm going down there to see for myself. I have heard the outcry against them. I need to go witness this for myself and see if they are deserving what's coming. So the men turned away from there and went toward Sodom. But Yahweh stood still before Abraham. And Abraham drew near and said, would you also destroy the righteous with the wrong? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Would you also destroy the place and not spare it for the 50 righteous that were in it? Far be it from you to act in this way, to slay the righteous with the wrong, so that the righteous should be as the wrong. Far be it from you. Does the judge of all the earth not do right? Abraham is very bold. I don't know of anybody that would truly question God in that way. If there's just 50, are you going to kill everybody, man? Come on. You're better than that. No, we wouldn't say that to God. Abraham did. I don't know anyone who would. And Yahweh said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous within the city, then I shall spare all the place for their sake. And Abraham answered and said, look, please, I who am but dust and ashes, have taken it upon myself to speak to Yahweh. Suppose there are 5 less than 50 righteous. Would you destroy all of the city for the lack of 5? And he said, if I find 45, I do not destroy it. And he spoke to him yet again, and said, suppose there are 40. And he said, I would not destroy it for the sake of 40. And he said, let not Yahweh be displeased with me, let me let me speak. Suppose there are found 30, he said. I would not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, look, please, I have taken it upon myself to speak to Yahweh. Suppose there are 20. And he said, I would not destroy it for the sake of 20. And he said, let not Yahweh be displeased. Abraham is very bold at this point, apparently. Let me speak only this time. Suppose there are found 10. And he said, I would not destroy it for the sake of 10. Then Yahweh went away as soon as he had ended speaking to Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place. That is very bold of Abraham. And it shows the mercy of God. Even 10 people in that entire wicked city, and they would have been spared. Honestly, I think if there was 9, God would have gotten everyone, all 9 out. But as we read later, they find 4. 4 righteous people inside the city. That's sad. That'd be like going to Vegas and only finding 4 righteous people. I'm pretty sure in Vegas there's a lot more than 4. I mean, yes, it's called Sin City, but still, there's got to be more than 4 righteous people in Vegas. How bad did the city have to be for Jesus to show up and tell Abraham, hey, I'm going off there and I'm going to go kill him? And Abraham freaking out, thinking, oh great, there's got to be some righteous people there. I know Lot's there. And I'm pretty sure Abraham was thinking of Lot. And hoping and praying that Lot had not fallen into the same sin as the rest of the people. One second, I'll carry on with the story. Genesis 19. And the 2 messengers came to Sodom in the evening. And Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. And when Lot saw them there, he rose to meet them, and bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said, look, please, my masters, please turn into your servant's house, and spend the night, and wash your feet, and rise early and go on your way. And they said, no, but let us spend the night in the open square. But he urged them strongly, and they turned to him and came to his house. And he made them a feast of baked unleavened bread, and they ate. Before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both old and young, all the people from every part surrounded the house. And they called to Lot and said to him, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us and let us know them. That is know as in the biblical sense. They wanted to rape them. Yeah, not good people. So Lot went out to them through the doorway and shut the door behind him, and said, please, my brothers, do not do evil. Look, please, have my 2 daughters, who have not known a man. Please let me bring them out to you, and do to them as you wish. Only do not deed to those men, because they have come under the shadow of my roof. This is the ancient law of hospitality. It is still practiced today in the Middle East. If you bring someone into your home, or even give them drink and food, even as little as drink, they are under your protection. You are to do everything you physically can to protect them. Even, apparently, giving up your 2 virgin daughters. Yeah. But they said, stand back. And they said, this one came to sojourn, and should he always judge? This one's a stranger amongst us. Who is he to judge us? Now we are going to treat you worse than them. So they pressed hard against the man Lot, and came near to break down the door. But the men reached out their hands, and pulled Lot into the house with them, and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness, both small and great. And they worried themselves to find the door. They couldn't even see to find the door that they were almost knocking down. I bet they were terrified at that moment. And the men said to Lot, have you anyone else here as son-in-law, and your sons and your daughters, and whom you have in the city? Bring them out of this place. For we are going to destroy this place, because the cry against them has grown great before the face of Yahweh, and Yahweh has sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spoke to his sons-in-law, who had married his daughters, and said, get up, get out of this place, for Yahweh is going to destroy the city. But his sons-in-law, he seemed to be joking. Oh, but to his sons-in-laws, he seemed to be joking. When someone says, hey, God's going to destroy the place, get the hell out, maybe you should go, even if you think it's foolish. You can always come back later and laugh about it. And when the morning dawned, the messengers urged Lot to hurry, saying, get up, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city. And when he loitered, the men took hold of his hand and his wife's hand and the hands of his 2 daughters, Yahweh having compassion on him, and they brought him out and set him outside the city. They weren't joking around. They were basically saying, God says move it. Get the hell out of here. And Lot said to them, oh no, Yahweh, please, look, please, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have increased your loving commitment, which you have sworn me by saving my life. But I am unable to escape to the mountains, lest calamity overtake me and I die. Lot saying, I can't make that journey. I can't go that far. Lesson to all of us. We should be prepared to get out as soon as God says go. It may be a friend saying, hey, this is going to get bad. You need to get out of town. You need to be ready to go. Physically, mentally, and have stuff ready to take. Look, please, this city is near enough to flee to, and it is small. Please let me escape there. It is not a small matter, and let my life be saved. And he said to him, look, I have favored you concerning this matter, also without overthrowing this city for which you have spoken. Hurry, escape there, for I am not able to do any deed until you arrive there. So the name of the city was called Zoar. That city is still occupied today. It is in the Dead Sea. It is one of the oldest occupied cities. It is very tiny, but there are people living there still. At least last I heard. And Yahweh rained sulfur and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah from Yahweh out of the heavens. And so he overthrew those cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the cities and what grew on the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a post of salt. Some translations put it as a pillar of salt. It's a lesson also. God says run, don't look back. And Abraham rose early in the morning and went to the place where he had stood before Yahweh. And he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the plain. And he looked and saw the smoke of the land, which went up like the smoke of a furnace. Thus it came to be, when Elohim destroyed the cities of the plain, that Elohim remembered Abraham, and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in which Lot had dwelled. And Lot went up out of Zoar, and dwelt in the mountains, and his 2 daughters were there with him. For he was afraid to dwell in Zoar, and he and his 2 daughters dwelt in a cave. And the firstborn said to the younger, Our father is old, and there is no man on the earth to come into us, as is the way of all the earth. They thought all humans were dead. It's about to get nasty, and even more Jerry Springer. Come, let us make our father drink wine and lie with him, so that we may preserve the seed of our father. So they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father. And he was not aware of it when she lay down, nor when she arose. And it came to be on the next day that the firstborn said to the younger, See, I lay with my father last night. Let us make him drink wine tonight as well, and you go in and lay with him, so that we keep the seed of our father. And so they made their father drink wine that night as well. And the younger arose and lay with him. And he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she arose. Thus both daughters of Lot became pregnant by their father. And the firstborn a son, and called his name Moab, and he is the father of the Moabites to this day. And the younger, she also bore a son, and called his name Ben-Amen. And he is the father of the children of Ammon to this day. All right, we'll leave off there today. There's a lot that has gone on. I urge you to read through this as well. It is not... A lot of the stories tend to get a little bit creepy at times. But there's lessons in there. Lot could have gone looking for Abraham, and Abraham would have been happy to have some of his best men marry Lot's daughters. But they assumed that all humans were wiped out. Well, that's all we're going to do today. Please like, share, and subscribe. Have a blessed day. And God bless all of you.